Tonight, Fed Up, a union leader is calling for the removal of Social Services Minister Obi Wilchcombe as workers continue the second straight day of protests. A funeral director ends up on the wrong side of the law, accused of fraud and hindering the burial of a dead body. Details from inside the courtroom are straight ahead. The Labour Minister says work on a livable wage has begun as parliamentarians wrap up the resolution to increase minimum wage. And then in our news at 7:30, the opposition leader claims Grand Bahama has been forgotten. His candid comments straight ahead. Our news live at 7 starts now. Welcome to our news live at 7. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kendino Knowles. Social services employees protesting a second straight day, led by Bahamas Public Services Union President Kingsley Ferguson. They're calling for the removal of Minister Obi Wilchcombe. Today's protest staged in front of the House of Assembly.
I want to suggest to the minister that everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if there is a need for an introduction of policies that would make social services effective, then the minister needs to map it out, present it to these individuals. They do have a vision and a mission statement, and I believe that they are accomplishing the mission for which social services has been implemented.
Ferguson also sharing why the protest moved from the union's headquarters to the office of the Prime Minister.
We brought it here because it's in closer proximity to where the Prime Minister is. And so if you didn't hear us yesterday from on East Street, we're closer now, and we're hopeful that he would have heard our plea and the cries. We're asking the Prime Minister simply because we believe that our concerns fell on deaf ears with the Minister of Social Services, Mr. Wilchcombe, which were presented to him sometime in early October, shortly after he took office.
Now, for more details on this story, tune in to our news at 7:30 with our Talia Hall. The Public Service Union president also claiming instructions from the Prime Minister for increases in the salaries and allowances of public servants, among other things, aren't being followed. Ferguson claims the Prime Minister's instructions to the Financial Secretary came recently in a meeting to ensure equal increases across the public service. The charge is, though, that it's not being fully carried out.
Unless we need to clearly define the word uniform for the Financial Secretary, public servants under the BPSU bargaining unit expects equal treatment as nurses and as teachers. We believe that there is some conflicting concerns that the Financial Secretary has, and we're asking the Prime Minister to have the Financial Secretary recused from the negotiations of the Bahamas Public Service Union.
And back at the House of Assembly, debate wrapping up on the resolution increasing to minimum wage to $260 a week. Labour Minister Keith Bell telling Parliament work on the livable wage has already started. It's a promise made in the PLP's blueprint for change. This increase is seen as a step towards a livable wage. Now, Bell revealing today that he and Public Service State Minister Pia Glover-Roll received recommendations from the local chapter of Human Resources Managers.
I charged them this morning, along with the Honourable Minister of the Public Service, that as human resource managers, they are in the best position in this country to ensure that as we move towards this livable wage, that they advise this government, this people, on productivity in the workplace. And so as Human Resources Manager, Madam Speaker, I am pleased to report that the work towards livable wage has begun.
With House approval, the resolution heads to the Senate to make way for the weekly $50 increase. A 43-year-old mortician from Grand Bahama making his first court appearance this morning. Glenn Campbell is charged before Deputy Chief Magistrate Debbie Ferguson, accused of fraud by false pretenses, acquisition of proceeds of criminal conduct, carrying on a business without a license, and hindering the burial of a dead body. Campbell also charged for falsification of public records did not have to plead on that charge. This all stems from the discovery of a decomposing man's body in bushes near a secluded Grand Bahama beach last month. Campbell pleaded not guilty to all 4 charges and was granted $8,000 bail with 4 sureties. He's back in court in April. A German man is dead and another seriously injured tonight after a shooting in Kemps Bay, Andros, around 8 o'clock last night. Police say 3 men, all Germans, were outside their summer home when a masked gunman approached. As they tried to get inside, the suspect opened fire, hitting 2 of them. The shooter fled, and the victims were taken to the local clinic. 1 was pronounced dead, the other airlifted to New Providence. The shooting has left the community in shock. Central South Andros and Mangrove Key MP Leon Lundy calling the incident unprecedented for a small, close-knit community like South Andros. A team of officers from the Criminal Investigations Department traveling to Andros to investigate. They are asking the public to assist with any information by calling the Criminal Investigations Department or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. And another accused killer gets out on $30,000 bail after a judge ruled he's not a flight risk. Prosecutors say 22-year-old Shamar Moss killed Tory Henfield and tried to kill Crawford Hanna during a shooting at a Freeport nightclub last December. Justice Andrew Forbes imposed strict bail conditions on Moss. Before he's released from custody, he has to surrender his travel documents, wear an ankle bracelet, keep a curfew, and check with police twice a week. We are just getting started in our news, but for now, it's time for your first look at temperatures across the country, and meteorologist Greg Thompson, he's standing by in the Weather Center. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Candino, and happy Thursday evening, everybody. A beautiful evening around the islands right now. Outside our studios, we are at 81 degrees with a few clouds. Your winds out of the north at 12 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature hanging out in the mid-80s. Temperatures around the islands right now in the northwest Bahamas, we have 80 in Freeport as well as in Marsh Harbor, Abaco, 81 in Alistown, Bimini. We pick up 82 in Great Harbor Key, over in Governor's Harbor, 80. Over Nicholstown, you guys, 82. Here in the capital, we are 81. Central Bahamas, 82s, well, 82 actually in Arthurstown, Cat Island, 81. We picked that up in Kemps Bay, Coburn Towns in Salvador, pair of 83s in Georgetown and Deadman's Key. And further south into the southeast Bahamas, temperatures also in the low to mid 80s. 84s in Duncantown, Ragged Island, as well as in Delectable Bay, Acklands. Colonel Cricket Island, 82. We pick up 83 in Abrams Bay, Matthewtown, Inagua, and our neighbors to the southeast, Tricks and Caicos Islands, you are 84 at this hour. Quiet day around the islands. Once again, high pressure remains in charge at the surface. We do have some high-level moisture moving in out of the Gulf of Mexico. Not really going to produce any rainfall at this time, but that stiff northeasterly wind will continue to promote a few isolated sprinkles across the islands. The wind's expected to pick up even more tomorrow, 15 to 20 knots across most of the island chain. But that high-pressure ridge will stay with us into the weekend, and we are going to watch an area to the southeast of the Bahamas that is likely to form over the next couple of days, well, actually into next week. We'll tell you more about that later on in our forecast. That's a quick look at weather. Stick with us, a look at the tropics, and your extended forecast is still to come.
Thanks, Greg. And still to come on our news, new opportunities as Grand Bahama gets set to welcome a resort village to the island in 2026. Plus, how the new disaster risk management bill is expected to keep Bahamians safe in the face of the unexpected. And nearly 20 families are set to move into their new homes before the holidays. It's all coming up when our news returns. The Disaster Risk Management Bill is now before Parliament, tabled recently by the state minister responsible for disaster preparedness. Megan Shepherd helps to explain what it will mean for you.
State Minister Miles LaRota tabling the Disaster Risk Management Bill 2022 in the House of Assembly. The bill will merge existing entities that currently deal with risk management in a way that falls in line with current technological advances and world standards.
The new agency will be an agency that will be much more agile, that will be much more adaptive.
And once funds are secured,
we have some islands of the Bahamas that have inadequate hurricane shelters. There was at least one island that was identified that did not have a shelter that meets the standards.
Apart from bolstering infrastructure, LaRota says there will also be opportunities for training.
In the past, you had NEMA who draw people together, but these were technical ex officios from different departments. What we are looking for now is to have a pathway for individuals who want to study in this field, who may be able to access scholarships to return home to better prepare.
LaRota says he is satisfied with the level of consultation on the bill.
We have had feedback. As a matter of fact, the bill that was laid, we have anticipate that those concerned that may not have come in, and even those under consideration when we get to the committee stage of the bill, that we will do our best to accommodate all of those entities who had those concerns.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepherd.
Well, the Caribbean has some of the highest energy prices in the world, and the World Bank officials there and local agencies warning of even higher costs next year. So what can we do about it? Christina Dragovich tells us in this week's Sustainability First report.
Bahamas First, putting sustainability first for our people and our environment. What's first for you and the planet comes first for us.
High energy prices are common in the Caribbean. A look around the region will show Bahamas Power and Light's counterparts in Jamaica charge 22 cents per kilowatt hour, 28 cents in South Caicos, and 29 cents in the Cayman Islands. World Bank Country Director for Caribbean countries Lilia Brunachik says the cost of energy in the Caribbean was further compounded by Russia's war in Ukraine.
Energy prices are high and they will keep growing. And these high prices, on top of the challenge of the economy of scale in the Caribbean, make the Caribbean economies not competitive.
And beginning December 1st, Bahamian residents can expect fuel charges to rise from 12.5 cents to 14.5 cents per kWh for those consuming less than 800 kWh. Anyone consuming more than that, like large businesses and resorts, can expect to see a 4.3 cent jump from 14.8 kWh to 19.1 kWh. Members of the Bahamas Hotel and Tourism Association met with Bahamas Power and Light on Monday about the impact the rising fuel charge will have on resorts. The World Bank's energy manager, Stephanie Gill, says energy prices have a ripple effect throughout the economy.
The Caribbean face some of the highest electricity tariffs globally. On average, about 25 cents per kilowatt hour. The tariffs can go, depending on the segment served, households or businesses, up to 45 cents per kilowatt hour, which is about 4 times what I pay here where I am based in Washington, D.C.
But in every challenge, there is an opportunity. According to a statement released by BPL, while the BHTA presented recommendations to help ease the impact of fuel prices on members, BPL says, quote, conservation and prudent behaviors remain the best methods for controlling energy costs. In its recent chat about energy in the Caribbean, the World Bank says it is working toward a clean energy transition in the Caribbean.
This is an undertaking that will require coordination amongst partners, coordination amongst countries for a high price. And this high price will be a shift from a fossil fuel-based electricity mix to a renewable energy mix for a promise of greater resilience, lower cost, and more competitiveness.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Christina Dragovich.
All right, thanks, Christina. Well, Grand Bahama will soon be the home of a new Six Senses resort. Six Senses Grand Bahama is scheduled to open in 2026. Developers hope it will create jobs, encourage sustainability, and regenerative activity. The resort village houses 45 waterfront and canal villas, a signature restaurant, beach venue, boathouse, and pool bar. Future developments of the 36-acre site includes a new marina. The development and investment team will be led by Weller Development Partners and Pegasus Capital Advisors, and it will receive an investment from the Global Fund for Coral Reefs. When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as the United Nations continues to condemn the U.S. embargo on Cuba. We'll tell you the financial impact the move is making on the Cuban economy. Plus, we'll tell you how many Bahamians received food assistance from social services last month, and an update on government's housing program as 18 families are set to be in their new homes before the holidays. Our news is back in a moment. This is our news. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to return as that country's leader after winning elections. The outgoing Prime Minister congratulating Netanyahu, instructing his staff to prepare for an organized transition of power. Prime Minister Yair Lapid, who has served as interim Prime Minister for 4 months, made the announcement just before the final results were released, showing Netanyahu securing a parliamentary majority.
We have no intention to stop. We have no intention to cease. Every Israeli citizen, religious or secular, leftist or rightist, Jewish or Arab, straight or LGBT, should know tonight that we will continue to fight for Israel to be a Jewish and democratic, liberal and progressive state.
Netanyahu expects to form Israel's most right-wing government in history when he takes power in the coming weeks. A smiling Netanyahu, who is on trial for corruption charges, which he denies, spoke to cheering supporters after he was declared the victor.
Our way, the way of Likud, proved itself. I remind you that after getting 52 seats last election, we are on the brink of a very big win.
United States President Joe Biden will spend the next few days moving across key states his party needs to hold on to in the next midterm election on Tuesday. The 4-state tour kicked off on Thursday in Carolina, then on to Illinois, New Mexico, and Pennsylvania, where he has deep roots. His itinerary shows the limited political clout he holds as president, held at arm's length by most Democrats in those tough races. It also suggests that the president, who has a low approval rating, realizes he is more effective at shoring up support for Democratic candidates. While speaking at Union Station in Washington Wednesday, Biden warned of an unprecedented threat to democracy.
There are candidates running for every level of office in America, for governor, Congress, Attorney General, Secretary of State, who won't commit. They will not commit to accepting the results of elections that they're running in. American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election. He refuses to accept the will of the people.
A UK court has ordered mining giant Glencore to pay more than £275 million for bribing officials in African countries to get access to oil. Between 2011 and 2016, the company paid £23 million to crude oil firms in Nigeria, Cameroon, and the Ivory Coast. Prosecutors say the UK energy company got employees and agents to use private jets to transfer the money to pay bribes. Glencore pleaded guilty to the corruption offense in June, along with 5 bribery charges. The company admitted to failing to prevent agents from using bribes to secure oil contracts in Equatorial Guinea and South Sudan. Brazil's president-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva arriving in Brazil Thursday to begin the transfer of power as the protests died down from supporters of the incumbent Jair Bolsonaro. Lawmakers, including the vice president, arrived at Congress to begin working on a budget proposal. They're being asked to consider a measure of allowing future spending the new administration considers essential. Meanwhile, President Bolsonaro has finally asked the truckers blocking roads nationwide to clear the blockades, as many of his supporters call for military intervention to overturn the elections.
I know you're upset, you're sad. You expected something else, so did I. I'm just as upset as sad as you are, but we have to keep our head in place. Having the roads closed is harming everyone. The appeal I make to you, clear the roads, protest in another way and in other places, because this is very welcome and is part of democracy.
Today, people are gathered here asking for a federal intervention because we believe there was fraud in the election.
We are here legally, peacefully, democratically as a counter to the coup. This corrupt, criminal system that organized the election through the Superior Electoral Court has delivered a blow to Brazil via the polls.
For the 30th year, the United Nations General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to condemn the American economic embargo of Cuba. The Biden administration continues the Trump administration's enforcement of the embargo, even though it was Obama's administration that abstained in 2016. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez, just ahead of the vote, said that since 2019, the United States has escalated the siege around Cuba, taking it to an even crueler and more inhumane dimension, inflicting the biggest possible damage on Cuban families. He went on to say that in the first 14 months of the Biden administration, the damage to the Cuban economy was estimated at $6.3 billion, more than 15 million a day.
Yesterday, we saw the announcement of the offer from the U.S. government of $2 million to the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, for which we have also expressed our gratitude. I could not yet cite the figures for the losses caused by Hurricane Ian. Still, I did give data on the magnitude of the damage caused by the blockade to Cuba, or that it has caused in the last 17 months, because the embargo is a permanent pandemic. It is a constant hurricane.
All right, and back here at home, 18 families could be moving into their new homes by the end of the month. The minister responsible, JoBeth Colby Davis, making the announcement, noting that the Davis administration has undertaken an aggressive home building project in New Providence and Abaco, with more on the way. Speaking in Parliament today, she said government is committed to widening the path to home ownership.
And by the end of November 2022, we will be putting at least 18 more families in their homes. 18 more families will be able to place Christmas wreaths on their own doors to their homes, because we are serious about our commitment, and it is indeed a new day.
Social Services Minister Obi Wilchcombe giving an update on the social assistance programs. Parliament heard 12,000 Bahamians got food assistance last month. Close to 90 families are receiving the assistance and nearly 200 in health assistance.
Just in September, 11,749. We are providing now shelter
89 families. We're providing shelter now for 89 families.
89, that's very good. Working.
180 of our people have received health assistance, all from social services, since July.
Still to come on our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was November 3rd as the Ruby Slippers make it to the small screen for the first time in the 1950s. Plus, heading into the holidays with Hallmark, what to watch on RTV. And then in our news at 7:30, an airport worker takes home a six-figure settlement after being injured on the job. The details when our news returns. Welcome back to our news. It's time now to turn our spotlight to events that shaped the day that was, including the television premiere of a classic film, the birthday of a fashion icon, and the election of a famous United States president. Take a look. November 3rd, 1956, the film The Wizard of Oz from 1939 aired on television for the first time and was seen by an estimated 45 million viewers. Its repeated airings on TV helped make the movie an enduring classic. The film was shown as the last installment of the CBS anthology series Ford Star Jubilee. In 1949, British editor Anna Wintour, who as the longtime editor of American Vogue became one of the most powerful figures in fashion, was born. Wintour has held the position of editor-in-chief of Vogue since July 1988 and was named artistic director of Condé Nast in March 2013. In 1978, Dominica achieved full independence with Patrick Rowland John as its first prime minister. Dominica was in a long fight for independence, first ruled by the Spanish, then the French, and then the British before finally obtaining independence. This day in 1992 saw the election of Democrat Bill Clinton as U.S. president, defeating the Republican incumbent George Bush. President-elect Clinton and Vice President-elect Al Gore raised their arms in victory in this photo before the crowd gathered to greet them after they won the 1992 presidential election. That year also saw Democratic politician Carol Moseley Braun become the first African-American woman elected to the United States Senate. The former U.S. Senator, American diplomat, politician, and lawyer represented Illinois from 1993 to 1999. Plus, in 1998, the U.S. cartoonist Bob Kane, creator of Batman, died at age 83. Kane is seen here arriving for the Los Angeles premiere of the film Batman Forever on June 9, 1995. DC Comics, which still publishes a wide range of Batman comic books, said Kane died November 3rd at his home. And on November 3rd, 2014, the One World Trade Center opened in Lower Manhattan, New York. The new tower, along with the rest of the World Trade Center complex, replaced the Twin Towers and surrounding complex, which were destroyed by terrorist attacks on September 11th in 2001. While reeling from the attacks, the United States decided the Twin Towers should be replaced by new office buildings, parks, a museum, and a memorial to those who died. Prime Minister Philip Davis remembering former parliamentarian and trade unionist David Knowles as a leader who made it his mission to uplift the common man. Knowles passed away earlier this week. He was also a former PLP stalwart and the former leader of the Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union. In 1977, Knowles and Edward Bobby Glinton entered into negotiations with the late Sir Lyndon Pindling to settle the terms of a memorandum of understanding between the PLP and the Trade Union Congress. In a statement, Prime Minister Davis said, Mr. Knowles was quietly confident and with an unassuming demeanor in public life, but stood for the principles of uplifting the common man and worked tirelessly to advance that principle. And the Anglican Church community mourning the passing of well-loved priests. From humble beginnings in Cat Island, Canon Warren Roll served the Anglican Church, the Anglican Central Education Authority, and the wider community for decades. Head of the Anglican Church for the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos Islands, Bishop Leish Boyd, fondly remembers looking up to Roll, who passed away yesterday.
I first met Warren Roll because as a boy growing up in St. Agnes Church, Warren Roll was the assistant priest at St. Agnes Church. And so the late Archdeacon William Thompson was the rector. He was the assistant. And because he was younger, he really drew the young people, and so young people were quite attracted to him and admired him and emulated him.
And what a legacy he had. The late Canon Roll was ordained a priest in 1969 and served as an assistant at St. Agnes Anglican Church and then as rector at St. Mary's Anglican Church before returning to St. Agnes. He also taught at St. John's College for many years and up to his death worked at the University of the Bahamas. Our hearts go out to his family tonight. May his soul rest in peace. To learn more about the late Canon Roll and all of today's top stories, remember you can visit ournews.bs and even share your favorites from the Our News Facebook page. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Natalia Hall is up now with the latest headlines. Natalia?
Thanks, Ken. And to add to yours already, from all of us here at Our News, our condolences to the family of the late Canon Roll.
Yes.
And we continue tonight with more on the industrial unrest in the public service, now making it to Parliament.
Live at 7:30, a union leader promising action as social services workers protest for a second day at the office of the Prime Minister. Our Sasha Lightborn has the latest tonight. Plus, CARICOM central bank governors turn the spotlight on climate change as a top IMF official explains the impact on the region. A leading cryptocurrency exchange will now call the Bahamas home, officially announcing it has registered in the Bahamas with a Bahamian executive team. And later, an airport worker who was injured on the job was awarded more than $128,000 in damages. We'll tell you what happened tonight on Our News. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment.
Welcome to Our News, and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. A heavy police and defense force presence outside the office of the Prime Minister today as scores of social services employees showed up in protest. They've got some grievances with their boss, Minister Obi Wilchcombe. Our Sasha Lightborn was there and gets us started.
If you approached the office of the Prime Minister this afternoon, you would have noticed a heavy police and defense force presence at the entrance and around the property. That's because over 100 employees from the Ministry of Social Services gathered for a second day to protest over a lack of promotions, pay, and other issues.
For so long, we have waited, we have been patient,
Yes.
we have given of ourselves, of our time, our families have been neglected to make sure that the work of social services continues.
Abuse did not stop.
No.
Persons' needs still needed to be addressed and be read out. And so all we're asking for is to be compensated. We're asking for risk allowance. Okay, we're asking for insurance.
With near tears in her eyes, this employee, who wished not to be named and works on a weekly contract, said this.
If we go to the bank, we're really not qualified. And it's disturbing because we have families. We have children who depend on us. We're not only workers to take care of persons out there, we need help too.
Bahamas Public Services Union President Kimsley Ferguson simply says,
we are just appealing. These people are essential in nature. And we feel slighted because when a call of duty is made, these people jump into action.
And what's the next step if their issues aren't resolved? Ferguson said this.
There's going to be action, and I want to say to public servants at large, on Monday evening at 6 p.m., all road leads to our East Street South Lake location.
Reporting for our news, I'm Sasha Lightbourne.
Thanks so much, Sasha. Now turning to Grand Bahama Free Nation movement leader Michael Pintard says he believes that the government is not giving enough attention to that northern island. Tonight, he's urging the government to do more.
The Davis Cooper administration has been busy overselling and under-delivering, and we caution them against it. One prime example is the state of the hotel. They have had multiple extensions and no reasonable explanation for the state of that particular deal.
And as it relates to the Grand Bahama International Airport,
the Deputy Prime Minister has projected that in 2025 the airport should be complete. We do not believe that he is in any position to predict a completion date for the airport.
The opposition leader believes that the government has forgotten Grand Bahama.
The administration that follows ought to have looked at the handover notes, ought to have observed and pivoted wherever they thought they needed to pivot.
He says he is concerned about government repealing the Commercial Enterprise Act.
What is their alternative to attract those types of businesses, particularly in the technology field, that would ordinarily not come to the Bahamas unless, for example, we put in place special provisions to attract them?
Now, residents in Grand Bahama who are still recovering from Hurricane Dorian continue to ask for extensions within a special economic recovery zone. These were put in place to help with the recovery. State Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Miles LaRota, says the extensions are only on a case-by-case basis.
It's going to be on a case-by-case basis. It never ended. It's just that rather than having a blanket, individuals could make their case, and wherever we feel the need is there, we have no problem in approving them.
And here's how those cases are identified.
Those individuals who would have sustained damage had to be replaced as long as they could prove their position was a direct result of Dorian, then we have no problem with that. The Disaster Reconstruction Authority was not a ad infinitum authority. It had a shelf life of about 4 years, and so that as the zone expands and this legislation that we put in place will deal with that more actively. Right now we're just dealing with Abaco and East End Grand Bahama.
While a top IMF official calling on regional leaders to continue focusing on climate risks and impacts on the financial sector. Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Bo Lee, speaking at the 59th biannual meeting of CARICOM Central Bank Governors, and he says it's vital that they become knowledgeable.
The IMF is helping our members build capacity through workshops and webinars in our Caribbean Regional Technical Assistance Center. More recently, this included training on the compilation of residential property price indices, developing models to assess the insurance industry's resilience to the impacts of natural disasters, and how to advance financial inclusion and dealing with climate risks.
Now, among the topics tackled was climate change, economic resilience, digital financial services, and regional priorities and challenges. While temperatures dipping down to the low 80s tonight as a tropical disturbance churns up in the Atlantic. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with our current conditions. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks, Natalia, and welcome everybody for our first check on weather on this beautiful Thursday evening. We do have some spotty showers out there, really fun, few apart. 81 degrees with a few clouds, your winds out of the north at 12 miles per hour, and your feels like temperature factoring the relative humidity feels like 86 degrees. Satellite view, high level clouds streaming in from the Gulf of Mexico across our area. Some spotty showers, most of those are in the Florida Straits, and they are continuing to move towards the west and southwest with that northeasterly flow. But surface high pressure will continue to dominate our weather, giving us some very nice conditions. And tomorrow we could see some filtered sunshine with that high level cloud moving across us. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. A look at the tropics and your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, we'll tell you what both parties are saying about the outcome of government's meeting with pharmacy stakeholders over price control items. Plus, an airport worker wins a big settlement after being injured on the job. The details from the Supreme Court case are straight ahead. Potholes, a problem? A tire specialist gives us the breakdown when our news returns. The government and the Bahamas Pharmaceutical Association coming to a constructive resolution. This according to Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Michael Darville. Dr. Darville says the new agreement will be in the best interest of everyone while also taking into consideration that pharmacies are businesses.
I'm pleased to announce that the medications that we have on our list reflects the World Health Organization medical list and an auxiliary list that we feel was necessary in order for Bahamians throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to capitalize on the savings necessary in order for them to be able to have their medications. There is an economic need to try to keep the costs of medications to a minimum and to help us to reduce the incidence of chronic non-communicable diseases that have decompensated and are at our tertiary facilities.
Clinical pharmacist Gregor McPhee says one of the priorities was ensuring that patients with non-communicable diseases are taken care of and that the public has access to reasonably priced medication.
With that in mind, we looked at the price control amendment list that took care of a lot of the categories that we know are important, your antihypertensives, your diabetic medications, your cardiovascular drugs. But we also said, as pharmacists in the community and looking at where the Bahamas is going, we need to add a little more. And we want to help the government to reach that mandate. So we also added cancer medications as well as kidney or renal medications to that list. So along with the price control amendment grouping, we've also added cancer drugs and kidney drugs.
Now visit ournews.bs and stay tuned to Our News Live for more on this story. A judge has awarded an injured airport worker more than $128,000 in damages. In November 2018, Ornell Gilbert fell through the platform of a damaged airstair at the Lynden Pinland Airport. Gilbert suffered a torn right rotator cuff in the fall, and despite 2 surgeries, Gilbert is still in pain. The line supervisor at Jet Aviation sued Nassau Flight Services for negligence. That's the company that owned the Airstare. Senior Justice Indra Charles found Nassau Flight Services at fault for the accident. Nassau Flight Services has also has to pay Gilbert's legal fees. Potholes dotted across busy streets sometimes cost motorists hundreds of dollars in vehicle repair bills, and in trying to avoid these road holes, motorists are often swerving into oncoming traffic. Tonight, our Megan Shepard speaks to a tire specialist on the dollars and cents of it all.
Potholes, a daily and often costly annoyance for Bahamian motorists.
They're destroying not just the tires, but the thyroid ends. Everything I got going on with the car needs to change.
They are patched and then eventually reopen over time.
I pray God they move and fix it, because the longer it takes, the worse it gets.
But did you know that rain is not the only cause of potholes? Sales manager at Battery and Tire Specialist Earl Wiley explains.
The roads aren't made for certain things. When the truck is too heavy, the limestone just falters under the weight. The rain just adds to that because the water is sitting there and the weight is compressing the limestone under the tar. The tar moves out of the way, potholes develop.
He says he believes certain vehicles should be restricted from certain areas. Wiley says he's witnessed bent and even shattered tire rims.
It's very hard to warranty a tire if the road is a problem. We warranty factory faults, but some people have hairline cracks in the rims, stress cracks because of hitting the potholes. Some of the rim is just totally destroyed. It's been a challenge since June and all the rain.
How many customers do you think they service a day?
A wheel alignment used to last 2 to 3 years. The alignment is lasting 6 to 10 months because of the stress on the roads, because of the potholes. So not just the tires, not just the rims, your entire undercarriage is being shaken up so much that it has to continuously be checked and repaired. At least 50 people haven't been having issues lately per day. If we serve 300 people, 50 of them are pothole issues.
Wiley says he believes our road should be designed and built differently.
The roads are made flat. It puddles. If you have a crest in the middle of the road where the water will run to the side, it'll last.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
When our news comes back from the break, a new name for the former Winn-Dixie building on Grand Bahama, part of a multi-million-dollar project by a local company.
Grand Bahama, a hotbed for high school basketball as the championship game in the Tip-Off Classic coming right down to the wire. Full details ahead in sports.
Young Bahamian executives on the front line as a major player in cryptocurrency makes the Bahamas its home. We have the details when our news returns.
This is our news. Welcome back. The former Winn-Dixie building, an historical landmark in Grand Bahama in many ways, has a new name and a new look. It's officially renamed thanks to the Milo B. Butler Sons Investment Limited. The renaming ceremony taking place this morning in downtown Freeport.
There have been many challenges faced along the way. Construction delays due to the pandemic, along with global supply chain issues.
The Winn building is a 32-square-foot building that will house the new Solomons. It's a part of phase 1 of a $10 million project spearheaded by Milo Butler Investments Limited. The highly anticipated project is just about complete, and Solomons is expected to open their doors in just a few days. Chairman of Milo Butler Investments Limited, Damien Butler, says they are committed to the resurgence of downtown Freeport and Grand Bahama.
We're looking forward to phase 2 of the downtown project, which will focus on the renovating of a 22,000 square feet Grand Union building over the next 12 to 15 months.
Senior Investment Officer at the Grand Bahama Port Authority, Derek Newbold, calling today a great day for Grand Bahama.
Today actually serves as a calling card to the rest of the Bahamas that Grand Bahama is rebuilding better, re-emerging.
Minister for Grand Bahama Ginger Moxie says the revitalization of downtown Freeport is finally here.
This building is historic. Not only is it located in Pine Ridge, but it was once the home of a thriving business establishment that became the bedrock of Freeport's Commerce Center.
Sunland and Tabernacle Baptist Academy going head-to-head for a basketball championship. Meanwhile, ladies volleyball continues at the D.W. Davis Gym. Here's Marcellus Hall with a check on sports.
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to Our Sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Last night, Grand Bahama, the space to be as high school basketball in full swing. Championship game of the Island Cares Basketball Classic. Let's take a look exactly how it turned out.
Meanwhile, the University of the Bahamas Mingos taking on the Strikers in the Providence Volleyball Association action last night. Mingos again struggling to get started, but they gave the veteran Strikers team a run for their money. Mingos led by as many as 6 points, 13-7 in the first set, but Spikers fought back. It came down to a deuce. Mingo's team got close again, but lost the first set 25-23. That set took a lot out of the team. It seemed they weren't able to come back with the same fire as they had in the first set. They dropped the second set there 25-8, and then the third set 25-13. They lose the match in 3 sets. Head coach Raymond Wilson saying the first set loss seriously impacted the team.
We go to the St. George's High School Gymnasium in Freeport, Grand Bahama for the championship game of the Island Cares Foundation Tip-Off Classic between the Sunland Lutheran Stingers and the Tabernacle Baptist Falcons. There's Minister of Youth Sports and Culture, the Honorable Mario Bolag, former national basketball team head coach, and Member of Parliament for North Andros and the Berry Islands, Leo Lightburn. Now, Leo was a great player for the national team and at Liberty University. There they go, greeting players before a jump ball. Now, this game was a dogfight with both teams trading buckets before Sunland finally pulled ahead to take a late lead. They would go on to win the game 54-50. The MVP of the game was Donnell Baisden. He led Sunland with 18 points, while Joshua Williams of Tabernacle led his team with 14. And we can't forget about the guys doing the dirty work inside. Bradley Williams was named top defensive player. This was Sunland's 3rd consecutive kickoff classic victory. Here's Sunland coach Jay Philippe talking about his team's victory.
But this is huge for us, being a former player at Sunland, playing in the championship game back in 2006, and now be the coach after playing 6 consecutive championship tournament. To win 3 back-to-back is an awesome spirit. But this one is even better.
Here it is. You look at sports for you here on this Thursday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
Still ahead on our news tonight, the Bahamas welcomes one of the world's leading cryptocurrency exchanges. We meet some of the young Bahamians at the top. Plus, Greg is back with the latest on a disturbance in the tropics. He explains how it may impact the Bahamas when our news returns.
Welcome back to our news. Breezy and pleasant conditions as we get ready to head into the weekend. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is back.
Thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody. We are still tracking two systems in the tropics, and actually we're going to be watching for another two out there. But right now we have Lisa, which is moved inland across Central America. The remnants of it should emerge back into the Bay of Campeche, but in the meantime, a lot of the showers have dissipated and weakened. Once the system gets into the Bay of Campeche, it's a possibility that it could regain tropical storm status, but we watch that for the next couple of days. Not really a threat to us. Some high-level clouds moving out of that across our area, filtering some of the sunshine we've been having over the couple of days, but we will not see much in terms of any of that over the next several days. Also, we have Martin, which is becoming post-tropical, very large system. This system is the one that's going to be posing a problem for us here in the Bahamas over the next couple of days, as it generates some very large swells, and those swells will continue to propagate towards the west and southwest. So we're looking at some challenging boating and beaching conditions for the weekend, so we're asking you boaters to continue to exercise extreme caution, and you beachgoers just be vigilant if you plan on doing any beaching for the weekend. We're also going to be watching two areas not shown up on the map right now, or the satellite picture. Broad area of low pressure is expected to form in the eastern Caribbean, and that should drift towards the north and just move to the east of the Bahamas. National Hurricane Center giving that a low chance at this time for formation, but we will continue to watch that system as it continues to track towards the north and more northwesterly. In the course of time, it's expected to gain some strength, so it could become a subtropical or a tropical system once it gets into our area. And the National Hurricane Center watching another area in the open Atlantic for the possibility of formation over the next couple of days. That one is about a 10% chance. Boating, if you plan on doing that tonight through tomorrow, caution flag in place for you for the northwest and central Bahamas. Your winds will be northeast to east. They will be picking up in speed 15 to 20 knots. Seas will be building 4 to 6 feet. Your low tide will be at 11:04 tonight. For the southeast Bahamas, we're asking you to exercise caution out there due to some lingering swells, but those winds will be northeast to east at 10 to 15 knots. Your seas running 2 to 4 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your 7-day planner, not much change to the weather pattern across our area. Of course, spotty showers throughout the remainder of the week, but we will continue to watch that low pressure system that's expected to develop just to the east of the Bahamas, and we will continue to keep you abreast of the development of that system. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody.
Thanks so much, Greg. The cryptocurrency exchange OKX has chosen the Bahamas for their regional hub. Thanks to the DIRAC, our Marlena Leonard was there for today's launch.
One of the world's leading cryptocurrency exchanges has registered in the Bahamas. OKX's global head of government relations, Tim Bune, explains what drew them to open OKX's regional hub in New Providence.
I've always said that if you're in the crypto business, you're in the compliance business. And so the DARE Act provides that strong, safe and sound framework that allows crypto companies to really grow from small to medium size to one day hopefully a large size corporation.
Bune also officially announced OKX Bahamas' team of Bahamian executives, including Chief Compliance Officer Ianthe Tynes, Chief Operations Officer Anthony Cartwright, and Chief Executive Officer Jillian Bethel, who tells us how crypto can change the landscape of opportunities for young Bahamians.
And I think in the Bahamas, we all look at opportunities for young people and think that, our opportunities exist in a certain range, in a certain space, but crypto is a space that's like wide open for everyone to take part in. So being an executive in this space, it's quite the opportunity, and it feels good because we can actually take advantage of it. And I'm happy to be one of the first to really go there and take advantage as a Bahamian to push it forward for more Bahamians.
OKX Bahamas is hoping to hire 100 Bahamians in the next 3 to 5 years, and 30 of those could be coming in the next year. We got the CEO herself to tell us a little bit about what they might be looking for.
So customer service is a big one, compliance, and then also some levels of business advisory, and then we'll expand beyond that as well. We're about educating people. The space is very, very new, so nobody is an expert, and it's somewhere where we can continue to grow.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
And that's for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.